So it's Sunday, and I decided to say a little bit about my mom. Her name's Linda Ellis. She died 2013. Um, she grew up. They had a farm, and they had ducks one year, and for Easter, and the adults said, "Don't take them upstairs. Don't take them upstairs." They took them upstairs. She had all four of them, the kids. And so they could hear my granny, coming up the stairs. So they put the ducks in a drawer in the bureau and slammed it. One of the ducks' heads went, listen to your mother. Um, she was an accomplished lady. She went to Mary Washington when it was a ladies' school and they wore white gloves in the 1950s. When she was growing up, she took ballet and she was on point, but she didn't do that forever. So I had a mom that was a ballerina, and she also took 12 years of piano, and she was very accomplished, but she wasn't quite good enough to make it a career, so she didn't. I think she would have liked to. She liked music a lot. She's very old-fashioned. Of course, back in the 1950s, they didn't have birth control, so it's better if you wait till you're married to do that. She met my dad, and they dated, and they got married. They had a big wedding, and she got sterling silver, lots and lots of expensive gifts. Dad had graduated from Virginia Tech in business, so there's a good chance he was going to be a good businessman, and they were going to have a really big, beautiful house like she wanted. She wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. She majored in psychology and biology. But pretty soon after the marriage, there was problems. She got pregnant with me. She said she thought she could get off the birth control for a month because it was bothering her. And so Dad felt really trapped. And the reason he felt trapped was because my mother she had anxiety and panic attacks and agoraphobia that she was dealing with in her adult life. And but they stayed married. And my dad said I would have gotten out of it, but she already was pregnant right away. And so we moved up to Chicago, and they had my brother. They planned my brother. They didn't want me to be an only child, and I was bad. I remember one time seeing my mom go out. She had a big fluffy hat on, and she was cooking us French toast. So I decided to get up on the counter and try some, and I opened the cabinet, and there was baby aspirin. So I ate the whole bottle of baby aspirin. And I looked down at my little brother, and I said, "You want some?" He said, "No." He didn't want to get in trouble. So yeah, I had to go in the bathtub and ice water and stuff like that. Oh, she was beautiful. She won she won a beauty contest. Um, so, to talk about my mom, I also have to mention a few things about my dad, and that's bipolar runs in my family. But, back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there wasn't a lot of diagnosis or help for it. You just kind of had to deal with it. And if he had bipolar behaviors like anger or depression, people would say, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You need to feel better. And they actually sent him to military school to help him do that. And he went to William and Mary, but I think the stress was too much, so he went in the Marines. And a lot of that was to help him get control of himself. But what was going on was a chemical imbalance in the brain. So our home life was my dad traveled all week. He would be gone all week as a salesman, furniture salesman. And he didn't live up to his potential because of this bipolar. He could have done a lot more if he hadn't had it. But so we were struggling for money a lot, and we had to take it from his father, who was a doctor, to help us stay afloat. So it was stressful, our house full. And I think Mom had some control issues. So I was tough to control. Obviously, I'm an artist. But, we did a lot of good stuff. We did puzzles. We had a little backyard to mow. We had a swing set. Went to the beaches. We snow skied some. But I feel bad. I remember one time we were supposed to go see the dentist, and we were all pretty little, and we piled in the station wagon, big green station wagon with the panel siding that she had contact paper because it was old. She couldn't leave the neighborhood. We tried it 3 times, and she just couldn't go because of her anxiety and panic. And see, my dad's not there. And I told her, I said, it's okay. And she always remembered that I had told her and reassured it's okay if we don't go. Um, my dad, I remember one story my mom was saying was that she wanted a bottle of water. She wanted some water. She was having a panic attack in the car. And my dad, because of his issues, he couldn't be empathetic or sympathetic to her. And that went on in the marriage, for it was just terrible. It was such a dysfunctional family. My dad seemed to favor me. And then later on, a friend of mine told me, well, you were a pawn between the parents. They were using you against each other. But and she cooked every night, and she drank a little bit of beer and smoked a lot of cigarettes because of her anxiety and things. She's always had job charts, so she's always trying to get us to kind of. My dad would say she's rigid. I would say she's controlling. Um, to do jobs in the house. And Dad would come home and she'd get really mad at him because he'd come up and wash the dishes. He says, I want to wash the dishes. And she'd get mad at him. And I mean, they went to social events. We were a member of the country club, you know. But sometimes you just can't tell what's bothering a family just by the outside of talking to them in small social situations and things like that. And it just wasn't there in place any kind of medicine at that time that would help my mom. And my dad, he just wouldn't see it. I mean, there was a lithium or something he could take, but it wasn't till later that some of the other newer medications. So they basically just had to suffer, and we lost our family. They could have stayed together if they'd been healthier, but they were just both so sick that our family had a terrible divorce. Dad had affairs because of the bipolar, and he had one with a neighbor, basically in the same neighborhood as us. And my mom just lost it. And she said, I can't do this. Because it was really most important to her to have a family. And, but then later on, she had three children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and she eventually got on medication. I got bipolar, and she went to NAMI, and she found medication, the Wellbutrin, to help her. And all of a sudden, she could drive out of town, and she quit smoking, and she didn't drink so much. But she was a wonderful lady. But I like to look at it kind of cubist at the whole thing, not just to say, oh, she's so perfect. Because nobody's perfect, But I did love her. And, she and I had some difficulties. And my dad was, just really scared about money and losing the farm because he couldn't make money because he was sick, because he had bipolar. If he hadn't had bipolar, he could have been a senator, or he could have been a judge. He could have done a lot of things. It really held him back in his career. So then, they were fighting over money, of which we didn't have any because my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was just a salesman. So yeah, it got kind of ugly. Got really ugly for all of us kids, my brother and sister and myself. It was difficult in the stress of that household. Because of things going on between the parents. I mean, even though we had a lot of good stuff, there's also a lot of stress because you could hear my dad lose his temper, and that was scary. He'd slam cabinets. I think he neglected my sister. He never really had that close a relationship with her, and I knew it. As a child, I knew that wasn't right. But I was happy to have all the attention because I'm a kid. And my grandmommy, she didn't like my mom because my dad was having trouble with her. So there's a lot of family dysfunction, unfortunately. And I just hope in the future that if we can get people treatment, we'll be able to have better stable nuclear families. Because if you do have a mental illness and you're in a family, it affects everybody. It's not just you. Your mental illness affects the community, it affects your family. And it's in a different way, but it's just as disrupting as if you were in a wheelchair. It really is. It's just you can't see it. It's all in the the stress levels that you can't really see. I mean, you can see when somebody gets violently angry. Um, they might do a mass shooting or something like that. And I would just definitely say we need to catch it in the bud. And let's go ahead and put art therapy in public schools to try to help the children that are dealing with these issues, prevent prison, prevent welfare, prevent children being born that aren't well taken care of, prevent violence. It's a big role for an art therapist, but I think they're up to the task. We need to let them try. Thank you.